Let's start with Group A. I mean, Qatar are out. We know that. The hosts are out already, but they play the Netherlands. They're on 4 points. Memphis Depay's clicking through the gears a little bit when he's coming on. Cody Gakpo's filled in for him admirably. Andy, I'm going to come to you first. Is this an easy win for the Netherlands, or have you seen a few things that concern you maybe that they may not beat Qatar?
Not that they may not beat Qatar. Certainly some things that once we get into the knockout rounds and we're talking about some of the best teams in the world, yes, they will probably use this as an opportunity to rotate just a little bit. I think what we've seen from Qatar so far and the fact that they have nothing to play for, I think that Louis van Gaal, he's smart. He's been through this before. He understands that you have to really, really kind of almost micromanage at a tournament, especially with the schedule the way that it is. But I think that means, again, we've already talked about it with Brazil and Portugal. You finally get an opportunity probably to get Memphis Depay into the starting lineup and give him a good long run of it and see what he's got to contribute at this tournament. If you can keep building him up and get him into the knockout rounds at close to full fitness, then I think we're talking about a completely different team. But until we see that is realistic and a possibility, I'm not really buying into the Netherlands too much at this moment.
Yeah, me too. It's interesting, right? So the bigger question is obviously Ecuador are playing Senegal in the other finale in Group A, and that's evenly matched as well. Ecuador on 4 points going into this one. They have +2 goal differential. Senegal's on 3 points with 0. So, Ecuador can obviously play for the draw and they know they're in. But Nick Mendola, Ecuador, the Netherlands, Senegal in Group A, very similar teams. I don't really know who's the stronger team really out of that. I guess Senegal maybe are the weakest team given that they haven't got Sadio Mane. But if he was there, I think there's nothing between these three teams. And who's the strongest team there with our English and USA hats on who could potentially be playing these teams in the last 16? Who's the strongest team, or who's the team you'd want to get out of those three?
Well, I think Ecuador is the most exciting team of the three. They also are exciting in the fact that their 3 or 4 Premier League or top end players are still entities we're learning a lot about. We still don't know all what they are at their very best, and so they represent more of an X factor. I think the best team is Senegal with Mane, but without him, the teams are just so similar. Yes, there are players who can attack. I mentioned how far I thought Senegal could go, and definitely I thought they could win the group before Mane was hurt. I feel that way more now. And, between Koulibaly and Van Dijk, there's just so many similarities between those two teams. And seeing how well Africa has done, I really feel for Sadio Mane. I know usually at the beginning of the tournament, we say, I kind of feel for this guy that he's not going to play. And then we forget about it as the tournament happens. I think his absence is on the pitch in every game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for Andy, same question to you, I guess. Who is the strongest team out of this trio? And as a US fan, kind of, if they do make it through against Iran, which we're going to talk about, who would you rather face in the last 16?
Yeah, at this point, I'm at the point of the tournament where I'm not looking at it or thinking about it who's the strongest or the best. I'm thinking about who I don't want to face specifically matchup-wise. And like you said, Joe, with those US and England hats on, Ecuador's the one I want nothing to do with, because the way that they can press, the way that they can up the tempo and just cause chaos all over the field, I don't know how that young U.S. men's national team, and especially the midfield, which is, not at its best on the ball, playing quickly, I don't know how they would hold up to that. And then, think about you get knocked out in the round of 16 by Brazil. Okay, you're expected to, but you do it to Ecuador, and then something that should be celebrated as an accomplishment, getting out of the group stage into the knockout rounds, is suddenly, well, you lost to freaking Ecuador. Nobody knows anybody from the Ecuadorian team, and so you completely wasted it, and that will be the narrative. So I want to avoid them at all costs, please.
Which is funny because. Oh, sorry, Joe. I was just going to say, which is funny because they actually remind me, losing to Ecuador in a knockout round could very much look like the times the United States lost to Ghana in the knockout rounds. Even the way you describe them sounds like those Ghana teams when the IUs were younger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to face the Netherlands, though, if I'm honest. I just think they're an organized team. They have just individuals, Frankie de Jong, Virgil van Dijk, Memphis Depay, when you look through their team, obviously Cody Gakpo, you can add into that list given what he's done at this tournament so far. Yes, they're not full of superstars, and they're not one of the great Dutch teams, but there's just something about them where I feel like they can get the job done when it needs to be done. And Louis van Gaal is part of that, of course, all his experience. You see Edgar Davids with him on the sidelines and Danny Blind, and just so much experience there where they're not a powerhouse anymore of European soccer, but they're close. They're close to it. And I think you want to avoid them at any stage. But maybe you're right, Andy. If you lost to the Netherlands in the last 16 for the US, it would be like, well, okay, they've got some absolutely legendary players and, great pedigree. And they're
because
really
that matters.
Yeah. But, like Van Dijk and Frankie de Jong and Memphis, like on the way to being legends. So there's a golfing class there, I would say. But, Nick, jump in. But
one thing with Ecuador,
teams, I just really think there's a difference between all three of those teams.
Yeah, one thing that just popped in my mind is it was the 2019 U20 World Cup when the U.S. made a really nice run and lost to Ecuador. I believe it was in the quarterfinal round. A lot of these guys would have been in that game. I know Dest was. Way is the one who scored the goal. Ecuador has built towards this too. I think they kind of maybe even sleepily have crept through the CONMEBOL ranks. I mean, Colombia didn't make it. Chile didn't make it. Paraguay didn't make it. That says something. And I think I've come around to Andy's point of view. I would go, I want Ecuador least. I want Senegal second least. And I think I would rather have the Netherlands. I'd rather be the total underdog and carry the unexpectations of the world.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.